Hey, sixth graders, Miss Crowley here. This week we're going to learn about metric measurements. It's just going to be an introduction to it. So we're going to start with this, with the metric basics. Okay, so in your problem of the day, you were supposed to answer what units of measurement would you use to describe the things below. Like here we have a football field, right? And here, this is a sign that you'd see like on the road showing how many miles it is to go to get to a place from wherever you are. Here's your milk and a scale, and then this would be, I'm going to move this up here, a thermometer, right? So the air temperature. So what kind of units would you use? And remember last week we learned about quantitative versus qualitative. So these would be quantitative measurements, right? And what you probably said, or if you didn't get it right, it's okay, but you probably said like a football field is in yards, and then here in miles, it's how many miles we have to go to get someplace. Your milk is in gallons or pints, right? But gallons or half gallons. If you weigh yourself, it's in pounds. And then we do the air temperature in Fahrenheit. So these are the basic units that we use here in the United States. And so what we are going to talk about is we in the United States have this US customary versus the metric measurement. As scientists, we use the metric measurement. It's much easier to use, but it's harder for us because we weren't brought up on it. So that's why it's new to you. And so we're still fairly new to you. So we have to kind of introduce it every year. So here, the United States customary is going to be things like inches and foot and yards. Like there's 12 inches in a foot and 3 feet in a yard. And there's gallons and quarts and pints and pounds and Fahrenheit. But when we talk about the metric system, we only have to learn actually 4 basic words: meter, liter, gram, and Celsius. And Celsius always stays the same, but with meters and liters and grams, we just change those words by adding prefixes. So there's less words to remember. But again, they're new to us because we don't actually use them in the United States. So that's why we have to review it every year. So we got meters, liters, and grams. Those are the basic units of the metric system. All right? Okay. We should probably go to our worksheet, right? So here, but basic units of measurement measures distance. Is that right? Okay. Oh, we haven't gotten to that. Whoops. I jumped ahead of myself. So what are the basic units of measurement? So here for a road, right, for something long, we would use kilometers. Here we have our 2-liter pop, and here we have grams. So this is going to be meters, liters, and grams. So the basic units of measurement. Okay, here we go with the notes. So meter, I should have known, right? Underline, so that's going to go over here. Meters measure distance. Okay, so here in other countries, they would say, have their highway signs and say 500 meters. And liter measures volume. Okay, so like we do use 2-liter pop bottles. That's one thing we do actually say, but normally we say gallons and pints. So we are going to use liters in the metric system. And here's some graduated cylinders that we use to measure volume in the science classroom. So we have meters, liters, and then grams measure mass, so much matter in an object, which we're going to get to. But first, this is the triple beam balance that we use in science class to do measurements in grams. Okay, and then here's just a scale showing how much an apple weighs if you weigh your food. And then Celsius is going to be for temperature. So we are going to write that in our worksheet over to the left. So here we have, let's see, I should probably do it in color, right? So here, distance, do you remember what that is? Going to be distance is meters. So like we have meter sticks in the classroom. So meters, volume is going to be liters. Oops. I was hoping it would just be red. Let's try it again. Sorry. Liters and mass. I hope you remember It's going to be in grams. Okay, so meters, liters, grams. And temperature is Celsius. We use Fahrenheit here in the United States, but the rest of the world, most of the world uses Celsius. C-E-L-S. Oh, Celsius. Okay, Celsius measures temperature. Okay, all right, so that's the first part, the basic units of metric measurement, meters, liters, grams, and Celsius. So now more about the metric system. And one thing is it's based on, that's why it's easy, it's based on units of 10. So to go from one unit to another, you either have to multiply by 10 or divide by 10. And a lot of times we use a decimal point and we move the decimal point over one place or two places depending on what it is. So here, kilometers, km, right, is 1,000 meters, right? So we would multiply by 1,000 because there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. And then here we have centimeters. So there are 100 centimeters in a meter. So we multiply by 100. And then there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Now, you don't have to memorize this. It's just to know that the metric system is based on units of 10. So we're always moving by units of 10. And that's why it's easier to use because it's not like you have to remember odd numbers, like there's 12 inches in a foot, right? And that there's 3 feet in a yard. This is always based on units of 10, and that's why it's a little bit easier to use. So here we have the metric system is based on units of 10. So just plop in the number 10, okay? And then here we're going to go to prefixes. So a prefix is something that we add in front of a word. So, oops. So here we have some of the commonly used prefixes like kilo, centa, and milli. Okay, so here we have our basic units, the meters, liters, and grams. And here's some common prefixes that come before the base unit. So kilo is 1,000 times 1,000. Centa is divided by 100. And milli is divided by 1,000 because milli means very small. Centa is a little bit smaller, and then kilo is big. That's why it's multiplying. So here you can see to go from a millimeter to a centimeter, you multiply by 10. To go from centimeter to meters, it's 100, and then meters to kilometers, it is 1,000. You do not have to memorize this. It's just to get the idea that it's based on units of 10. So here are some examples. Like 1 meter has 100 centimeters because a centimeter is like maybe as big as your thumb. Okay, so there's about 100 centimeters in 1 meter, which is about a yard. Okay, now kilometers are large, they're like a mile, a little bit less than a mile, and there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Here we have gram. 1 gram has 1,000 milligrams, okay? But this is just to give you an idea. So here we're going to come over here, the prefix before the base unit, so kilo, like kilometer, kilogram, kiloliter, right? Centa, centimeter, right? So kilo means, let's see if kilo means, kilo means what? It means times 1,000. And then here we have centa. Centa means divided by 100. Okay, and then we have milli. Milli is very small. Milli means divided by 1,000. All right? Okay. Oops. Now, just some visuals, because I think this will make it easier for you to understand. So we measure tiny, tiny things in millimeters. So things like here, if you wanted to measure the diameter of your eraser, their pencil, right? It's very small. So when you're measuring something very small, in distance, you're going to measure in milli, or something that's your a volume, like a very small, like liquid. So sometimes in nursing, right, or doctors will use millimeters, or I'm sorry, milliliters, centiliters, okay, because even in the medical field, they use the metric system. So we have milli for small things, we have centa for things that are, like these are tiny things, these are smaller things like your pencil. So if you wanted to measure a pencil, you would do it in centimeters. If you wanted to measure something that was medium, like a ping pong table, you would do it in meters. Or if you're measuring someone's height, like an adult person's height, you would do it in meters. Here, if you measure very large things, you're going to do it in kilometers. So if you're measuring the distance you're traveling from one place to another, that's going to be in kilometers. So tiny things, milli, small things, centa, medium things in the base units, meters, and then large things in kilometers. All right, so measure tiny things in millimeters. So measure in centimeters. We're going to measure small things in centimeters, which is, we abbreviate cm. Measure medium things in meters, so just m. And then we measure very large things in kilometers, so km. All right? Okay. So now the reason why we are doing this is if you look at the map of the world, everything in green uses the metric system. So I know some of you have traveled to other places, and so if you go to other places and you're driving down the street, all their signs will be in kilometers, right? When you go to a website to see the temperature, it's going to be in Celsius. So it might sound really cold because it might be 20 degrees Celsius, because we're not used to it. So this whole everything in green uses the metric system, okay, except for 3 countries. So here, United States and Alaska, right? That's part of the United States. We do not use the metric system. Burma does not use the metric system, and Liberia does not use the metric system. So it is important for you guys to know this, and some of you will go into fields where you will use the metric system. So if you become a doctor, if you are a nurse or a veterinarian or anything in the medical field, you're going to use the metric system. If you go into any science, you're going to use the metric system, because what happens is we are a global economy, right? And so all of these things, we are travel, or moving parts. Like, just think about automobiles; they come from all different places, right? So we use the metric system because other countries use the metric system. So maybe someday we'll change, but we're not sure. Almost every country in the world uses the metric system, except countries that do not would be the United States, Burma, and Liberia. All right, so that is the end of this, and I hope that it has made sense, and I will see you at the Google Meets.